Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Draftkings Showdown slate for the Week 4 Thursday Night Football game between the Dolphins and the Bengals. We finally have a good primetime game. Last few primetime games haven't been the best, kind of some low totals, but this one should be a good one, man. We got two pretty good offenses going up against each other. I think this will definitely be a fun game to watch. It'll definitely be a fun showdown slate to play. And we're going to talk through things. We're going to go, kind of just top to bottom, talk through the entire player pool, hit on all the playable options, all the guys that I do have interest in on this showdown slate. Just before we get started, make sure you guys hit that like button down below if you do enjoy these videos. If they do help you out a lot, if you do enjoy my showdown content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you have not yet. Going to be uploading NFL videos, all season, all the way up until the end of the season, to the Super Bowl. Going to be covering NFL, and we got NBA coming up soon. NBA regular season starts in like 3 weeks, and I'm going to be covering NBA. It's one of my favorite sports to play and to provide content for. I'm going to be covering NBA in a few weeks when it starts. You guys are definitely going to want to be subscribed. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well, so that way you get notified every time I do upload a new video. And real quickly, if you are new here and if you guys have not heard of PrizePicks, they are the sponsor of this video. You can actually check out PrizePicks, link down below in the description, or just when you sign up, make sure to use promo code NOAH. When you do sign up with my promo code, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. And PrizePicks is a player prop based DFS site, so it is really simple. You're just taking over or under, more or less on a player's projection. They already have projections posted for Thursday night's game. If you want to take a look at some of the props they have available right now, you can take a look at their full Sunday board as well, because PrizePicks, one thing that's nice about playing on PrizePicks, they post their props earlier than any other books. Like, I don't think any of the books even have props up for Sunday yet. PrizePicks has like almost a lot of props posted right now. They got all the passing yards up for the quarterbacks. They got rushing yards up for the running backs, receiving yards up for the receivers. And obviously, as we get closer to Thursday night, as we get closer to Sunday, there's going to be even more props available that you can play on PrizePicks. So definitely check them out. Make sure to sign up with code NOAH. Get that deposit bonus when you do sign up. And as always, I will be sharing a couple of plays that I like for this Thursday night game. I'll make a separate video, a PrizePicks video, probably sometime on Wednesday. I'm going to post this video on Tuesday. Sometime Wednesday, check the channel, check out the channel, and I'll for sure have a PrizePicks video posted, sharing a couple plays I like for Thursday Night Football. But let's start through the showdown slate, guys. We're going to start off at the top of the player pool. Most expensive option on this slate is going to be Jamar Chase. He's coming in at $11,000 on Draftkings, and I will say that this is definitely a star-studded showdown slate. Like, excuse me. There's a lot of guys worth paying up for on this slate. A lot of guys you can go to. Obviously, Jamar Chase, there's nothing really negative to say about Jamar Chase. He's got really good target share. So far this season, 35 targets through 3 games. He's averaging almost 12 targets per game. He's clearly, Joe Burrow's go-to guy. I don't really worry about this Miami secondary too much. I know they're kind of banged up right now. I know Xavier Howard's been dealing with some injuries lately. I think this is a spot Jamar Chase can have plenty of success. I think he's obviously one of the highest upside plays on this slate. Really nothing negative to say about him. I think the big decision point you're going to have to make is, between all these pay-up options, if let's say you're just playing one lineup, who are you going to go to? Now, if you're playing a lot of lineups, just, kind of get exposure to all these guys at the top, but you can't play everyone at the top, so you're going to have to make some decisions. You have, the Miami receivers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have just been both getting peppered with targets so far this season. I think this is something that we kind of all expected. You look at this Miami offense, it's clear that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are their two best receivers. And so far through the first 3 weeks of the season, these are the target distribution for Tua. So Tua has targeted Jalen Waddle 29 times. He's targeted Tyreek Hill 28 times. Next highest guy is Chase Edmonds, and Chase Edmonds has seen 8 targets. That is just such a massive drop-off. 29, 28, and then all the way down to 8 targets. When Tua drops back to throw, he is looking for Tyreek Hill. He's looking for Jalen Waddle. I think we can expect both these guys to probably see close to double-digit targets, if not more than that. Jalen Waddle is coming into this game a little banged up. We do have a couple guys that are questionable heading into Thursday night, but I think for the most part, almost all these guys are going to play. I think the biggest question mark is probably Tua, just because Tua did suffer that kind of that concussion. He was stumbling around. He ultimately was able to play through it on Sunday, but we'll have to keep an eye on all these question marks. Expecting Waddle to play as well. And Tyreek and Waddle, I think, are both going to get big time volume here. Tyreek obviously was a big disappointment last week, but you can't look too much into last week. The Dolphins really didn't throw the ball much. They didn't have the ball for much either. I know when you look at time of possession last game, the Bills had the ball for 40 minutes, and the Dolphins only had the ball for 20 minutes. So We didn't really get to see Waddle or Tua get a ton of opportunity Waddle or Tyreek get a ton of opportunity. Waddle still had a fairly good game, but I like both these Miami receivers. I think if I had to choose one, I do still prefer Tyreek, just because I think Tyreek does offer that slate-breaking upside. If there's anyone that can go for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, I think it's Tyreek. But, I mean, Jamar Chase has that kind of upside. We've seen Waddle have some massive games this season too. These top receivers, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they are all really good plays. I don't really have anything negative to say about any of them here. It's just a matter of, which ones are you going to play. If you're playing just one lineup, you're going to have to make some sacrifices because it's going to be really hard to pay up for all these guys. And then you have the quarterbacks, and I think the quarterbacks are definitely underpriced here. I mean, you got Joe Burrow at 9,600, you got Tua at 9,400. I would say Burrow is probably like my favorite overall play on the slate. I just think 9,600 is too cheap for the upside that Joe Burrow has and for the safety that he offers, for the floor he has. I mean, week 2 was a pretty disappointing game from Joe Burrow, and he still scored like 16 Draftkings points. He's pretty much going to give you like almost 20 DK points a week, close to that. In this game, this is expected to be somewhat high scoring with a 47 total. I think we can expect a pretty good game from Joe Burrow here, and I think 9,600 is just way too cheap for Burrow. Quarterbacks are usually always going to be pretty solid plays on these showdown slates, and I think both quarterbacks do look a little bit too cheap here. Obviously, Tua had that massive game week 2 against the Ravens. He threw for 6 touchdowns. Last week was a little bit disappointing, but again, he only threw the ball 18 times. The Bills had the ball for what felt like the entire game. Week 1, they didn't really have to throw the ball a ton. They were leading against the Patriots. I think this could definitely be a game where the Dolphins do get behind. Right now they are, I think, 4-point or 3.5-point underdogs on the road here in Cincinnati. I think we could see Tua forced to drop back a little bit more here. Cincinnati's defense has been solid this season, but Tua offers a pretty safe floor. He does offer somewhat of a ceiling as well. I think Joe Burrow straight up is my preferred quarterback play in this game. But man, both quarterbacks I think are very solid plays. They're both high floor options. I think if you're playing cash games, I tend to always try and play both quarterbacks in cash games just because quarterbacks do kind of offer like the highest floor out of anyone. In tournaments, it might make more sense to pay up for those top tier receivers in tournaments just because I think those guys have the best ceiling. But for cash games, for floor, for safety, both quarterbacks look really, really solid here. And then, DraftKings did price up Teddy Bridgewater just in case Tua sits. Obviously, if Tua sits, you could go to Teddy Bridgewater at 8,400, but I'm expecting Tua to play. We need to talk about Joe Mixon, though. So Joe Mixon continues to see really, really good volume on a weekly basis. Last week, he only got 15 touches, but he was a little bit banged up towards the end of that game. Also, they were winning by like 2 touchdowns, so I don't think they really needed to force Joe Mixon to be out there. I don't think he played like at all in the fourth quarter. He still saw 15 touches, though. He got 22 touches in week 2. He got 34 touches in week 1. Like, Mixon has been a workhorse back this season. He's been playing on 75% of the snaps. Last week, his snap share did go down a little bit, but again, I don't think he played much, if at all, in the fourth quarter because I think he was a little bit banged up. But he seems to be fine heading into Thursday. And we know Mixon's going to get the volume. Now, Miami's defense, in terms of like against the run, I think they've just kind of been like middle of the pack so far this season. In terms of like fantasy points allowed to running backs, they are actually towards the bottom of the league, but it is just a 3-week sample, so I don't know how much we really want to look into that. I think when you're looking at Mixon here, you're playing him for the volume. He's just going to get so much opportunity. He's probably going to get 12 to 15 carries at least, and he's going to get usage in the passing game as well, which is really valuable on DraftKings. Getting running backs that can catch passes is always something you want to look for. I really don't have anything negative to say about Mixon. I think you probably get a little bit of a higher floor from the quarterbacks. But if I had to guess, I think Mixon might come in the lowest owned of all the pay-up options. Like, when you're going from Mixon all the way up, I think Mixon might be the lowest owned of all those guys. So in tournaments, you could definitely go there. I think Joe Mixon's a solid play here. I think the volume's going to be there. This is definitely one of those slates where it's really hard to have anything negative to say about like any of these top-tier plays, just because these receivers are going to get so much volume. Mixon's going to get so much volume. Obviously, the quarterbacks look solid. I hate to come on here and just say, like, you can play all these guys, but I really think, like, on this slate, you could definitely just play all these guys. They're all viable, in my opinion. I think picking the right values is probably going to be where you win or lose on this slate. But then you got T. Higgins at 8,200. And T. Higgins, he's been solid this season. He continues to see pretty good volume as well. He's been the clear kind of wide receiver 2 for the Bengals. Looking at target distribution so far this year for Cincinnati, I mean, Jamar Chase has kind of been the clear number one option. He's had 35 targets so far through 3 games this year. Joe Mixon is actually second on the team in targets. He's had 20, and then T. Higgins with 19 targets. But it is worth noting that T. Higgins did get injured in week 1, so obviously didn't play a full game then. When he's been healthy, when he's played full games, I mean, he's been a guy that consistently sees 8, 9, 10 targets. We know T. Higgins offers upside. He honestly, he should have had a better game than he did last week. It looked like he had a touchdown catch that should have been a touchdown, but they said it was not. It looked like he got his feet down though. So, man, I think T. Higgins, I mean, at 8,200, he is definitely in play for me on this showdown slate. I think I do feel a little bit better about Joe Mixon. I think Mixon kind of offers a higher floor. But for tournaments, I mean, we know Higgins has that kind of upside that you're always looking for. We know if Joe Burrow has a big game passing, let's say Joe Burrow throws for 300 plus yards, it's very possible that one of Higgins or Chase or maybe even Tyler Boyd, has like 100 plus yards and a touchdown. I think Higgins is for sure viable on this showdown slate. I think he's someone I'm going to have in my player pool. Samaje Perine, not going to go there. I think DraftKings priced up Perine just in case Mixon sat, but I expect Mixon to play. Perine is just way overpriced for what his role is. Obviously, don't play Perine. Tyler Boyd, though, I think at 7K is a fine play. Now, Boyd finally had a big game last week, going over getting over 100 receiving yards. It's been the first time, and I think it's been a first time in like a year that Boyd's had over 100 receiving yards, which is crazy. But he's still going to be involved in this Bengals offense. He's kind of he's their clear wide receiver 3. He's not going to see nearly as many targets as Jamar Chase or as T. Higgins. But Tyler Boyd's going to be on the field for probably 60, 70% of the snaps. Last week, Tyler Boyd played on 68% of the snaps last week. He played on 80% and 81% weeks 1 and 2. So he's going to be kind of their slot receiver. He's going to be the guy that probably sees 78% of the snaps, and he's going to probably see like 5 to 6 targets. Maybe a little bit more. It's 7K. I think Boyd's kind of priced correctly. I worry a little bit that his ownership might be a bit inflated after that big game last week, but I mean, at 7K, I think Boyd is a fine option. I don't love him on the slate, but I think he still is in play. Now, the Miami running backs, I mean, I really don't know what to do with the Miami running backs. I haven't been targeting them on main slates. Obviously, this is totally different now when we have just one game and it's a showdown slate. You got Chase Edmonds at 6,200 and you got Raheem Mostert at 4,400. I think given the savings, I would probably rather play Mostert, especially because we are kind of looking for value here. With so many good pay-up options on the showdown slate, you're going to have to find some cheap plays. And I think at Edmonds' price tag, I would just rather go to like Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins or even some of those other guys we talked about priced above him. Edmonds, in my opinion, is kind of priced in no man's land. He's kind of just a little bit more expensive than I would like to pay. Edmonds hasn't had like a great role so far this year for the Dolphins. I know Edmonds is a really talented running back. It's just, right now with Miami, he's splitting time with Mostert, and looking at their touches or their snaps last week, Mostert played on 56% of the snaps and Edmonds played on 44%. So Mostert actually outsnapped Edmonds last week, but Edmonds did get 2 goal line touchdowns, so he kind of ran hot there. He is a guy that can catch passes, and if Miami does get behind, I think they will involve Edmonds in the passing game. But at 6,200, I think Edmonds is just kind of a contrarian play on this slate. I don't think he's someone that I'd be going out of my way to go to. I expect him to be fairly low owned. Mostert, on the other hand, at 4,400, I do actually like Mostert for value. And like we said earlier, we're going to have to find value on this showdown slate. Mostert, he hasn't been great so far for Miami. He hasn't really done much through their first 3 games. He got 6 touches in week 1. He did get 14 touches in that game against Baltimore. And then last week against Buffalo, he saw 8 touches. Again, Chase Edmonds got 2 goal line touchdowns last week. If you give those 2 goal line touchdowns to Mostert, there's a good chance that Mostert would be like super, super popular here. And he might still be a popular option, but I think at 4,400, he is definitely cheap enough that I'm going to be interested in going to Mostert for value. He has been outsnapping Edmonds so far, at least through the last 2 weeks. Edmonds outsnapped him in week 1, but last week, again, 56% of the snaps compared to 44%. And then in week 2, Mostert played 55% of the snaps compared to 51% for Edmonds. It's going to be like a 50-50 split between these guys. I think given the almost $2,000 savings, I would just rather roster Mostert if I'm looking for some value. And again, value really hard to come by. But then we got some of the tight ends. So like you got Hayden Hurst at 5,400, Mike Gesicki at 5K. Again, these are guys that I really have not been playing at all this season. They really haven't even been in my main slate player pool. But we're talking about a 1-game showdown slate here, so we're going to have to consider Hurst and Gesicki. Hurst, I mean, he's actually gotten some good volume this season. He's gotten 17 targets through their first 3 games. He just hasn't really been able to do anything with those targets. He's kind of, at his $5,400 price tag, I would say that Hurst is probably touchdown or bust. If he doesn't catch a touchdown, I would say it's pretty likely that he's going to score like less than 10 Draftkings points. But if you can get lucky and he gets into the end zone, I mean, Hurst is definitely someone you could consider for value. I mean, he has kind of been the clear number 1 tight end for the Bengals so far this season. I'm pretty sure he did get injured last week. He only played on 38% of the snaps last week. But the week 1, he played 75%. Week 2, he played 81%. He's going to be close to like an every down tight end. I think if you're looking for some value, I mean, Hurst is playable, but I do worry a little bit about his floor. Like, I think there is a pretty low floor for him. I think he's going to have to get into the end zone to probably, be someone that you have to have. And same could be said for Mike Gesicki. I mean, Mike Gesicki has just not had that good of a role so far this year with the Dolphins. He's not really been someone they've targeted either. He's got out-snapped last week by Durham Smythe. Smythe actually played on 74% of the snaps last week. Gesicki only played on 40%, which is definitely a concern. And through 3 games, he's only seen 6 targets. So I don't feel really good about Mike Gesicki. I mean, he's definitely a risky option. I think he's very similar to Hayden Hurst in that if he doesn't catch a touchdown, he's probably not going to be worth rostering, especially at $5K. So Hurst and Gesicki are both playable options, but I think they're touchdown or bust. The kickers actually do like quite a bit on this Showdown slate. I think this is one of those slates where the kickers are going to project out as pretty good values just because there's not much cheap that really stands out. So, yeah, I'm definitely fine playing one of the 2 kickers. Honestly, I wouldn't hate playing both kickers. I normally don't play both kickers in the same lineup, but we've actually seen recently, I think it was actually on Monday night with that Cowboys-Giants game, both kickers were in the optimal lineup, and I think one of the kickers was actually the captain. It's rare that you see a kicker be the winning captain, but if both kickers put up like 10 fantasy points, that actually might be like good on this slate because I don't know if there's going to be any of these cheap options if any of these guys are going to put up 10 fantasy points. And we've seen kickers be able to consistently put up 8 to 10 points a week. So I actually do like both kickers a good amount here. I don't have a strong preference between the 2. Maybe McPherson just because I think he might be the better kicker, but I don't really know much about kickers. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the kickers. I think they are both really good values on this slate just because value's so thin. The defenses are, fine, but I tend to try and avoid defenses on Showdown slates. Defenses always tend to be over-owned, and in order for a defense to really make the optimal lineup, for one, they're either going to have to generate, a ton of turnovers like sacks, interceptions, fumbles, or they're going to have to get a defensive touchdown, which could always happen. We've seen Tua have times where he just doesn't look great. He throws picks. Obviously, we saw Joe Burrow. I think it was week 1 or 2 against the Steelers when he threw a ton of picks. You could have that type of game here. Like, you could see one of the 2 quarterbacks turn the ball over a lot. If I had to play one of the 2 defenses, I feel a bit better about the Bengals defense. They're at home. They're cheaper. Tua, I think, is a quarterback that's more prone to turn the ball over than Joe Burrow is. So if you want to play the Bengals defense, I don't hate it, but I do prefer the kickers if I had to roster anyone in that price range. And then, man, once you get past the defenses, I mean, God, there's nothing down here that feels remotely enticing. You got Durham Smythe at 2,800, who, last week did play 74% of the snaps, but he still just only saw, I think, 1 or 2 targets. He has barely been involved in this Miami offense, so, he's not someone that I'm super interested in. He saw 3 targets last week. He feels like a touchdown or bust play, in my opinion. You got River Craycraft, who's barely been involved in this Miami offense. He's only seen 3 targets all season. Last week, Craycraft only played on 21% of the snaps, so, I don't really want to roster him. You got Cedric Wilson, who maybe you could go to, but he's barely been targeted this season, just 3 targets, and last week Cedric Wilson just played on 12% of the snaps. It's just, outside of Tyreek and Waddle, there is no one in this Miami offense, at least a pass catcher, that you feel remotely confident in. Now, could Durham Smythe catch a goal line touchdown? Could Mike Gesicki catch a touchdown? That is absolutely possible, but I can't come on here and say, yep, I feel great that Durham Smythe's getting 8 targets tonight, or he's going to get 6 targets. I just can't say that. I don't feel good about any of these guys. These guys they've all been terrible to start the season. I mean, none of them have shown any fantasy upside. They've barely been involved in the offense. Tua just seems so locked in on targeting Tyreek and Waddle that none of these other guys are getting much opportunity. If I had to roster anyone, it probably would be Trent Sherfield, just because he's kind of been the wide receiver 3 so far this year for the Dolphins. He did play on 63% of the snaps last week, albeit he just got 1 target, but if he's going to play on 50, 60% of the snaps, I mean, maybe he sees 3 or 4 targets. Maybe he catches a couple balls. He's only $1,400, and if this winds up being a slate where like a lot of the top tier studs do really well, you could definitely see the winning lineup be just like a stars and scrubs lineup where, you know, 4 of these top guys are in the winning lineup, and then whatever value play gets you like 8 points, like that could be what you need. That could be all that you need on this slate. We've seen that happen before. So maybe you could roster a guy like Trent Sherfield as kind of the wide receiver 3 for Miami, but Miami just has so many guys on their roster that they can involve behind Tyreek and Waddle that I have no strong stance here when it comes to, you know, some value plays on this slate. Honestly, just straight up, I think the kickers are the best values, and after that, like, there's no one I feel super good about. I think Mostert's a pretty decent value. I think Gesicki and Hurst are kind of like touchdown or bust plays. The rest of these guys are just dart throws, in my opinion. If I had to roster anyone down here, I think Sherfield would be my favorite play. But that's really it for this Showdown slate. It's a very interesting one, guys. We have a loaded top tier loaded top tier options on the slate, but we have no value. Like, the value is so gross. So it's going to make for some interesting roster builds. I'm going to be very interested to see like what the winning lineup winds up being on this slate. You could definitely see it being like just a star-studded, you know, lineup where, you know, let's say 4 of these top 6, 7 guys are in the winning lineup, and then, like I said earlier, whatever value play gives you like 5 points, that could be all that you need if all these studs wind up doing well. But yeah, it's an interesting one, man. I'm excited for this game on Thursday night. I'm excited to, you know, sweat out some lineups, watch this game, sweat out some player props too. Obviously, we'll be talking some prize picks, you know, probably later this week, probably on Wednesday is when I'll upload my prize picks video. And for those of you that are new here, guys, if you have not signed up for prize picks yet, they're the sponsor of this video. You can check them out, link down below in the description, or just when you sign up, make sure to use promo code NOAH. Prize picks will match your first deposit up to $100 when you do sign up with my promo code. And you can already see Prize Picks has some props posted for Thursday night. They have some props up already for Sunday. Take a look at their full board, see everything they offer. I'm sure as we get closer to Thursday night, Prize Picks is going to add even more props for this game. They're going to add even more props for the Sunday slate. A lot of props you can bet on Prize Picks. You can mix and match sports as well over there. You can do multi-sport entries. It's a lot of fun. Highly recommend you guys play on Prize Picks. And if you're not yet, get over there, sign up, use promo code NOAH, get your first deposit matched up to $100. But that's all that I got for this Showdown slate, guys. I wish you the best of luck on this Thursday night slate. Hope you guys enjoy this game. Hope you enjoy this video as well. And we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.